Hello, everyone. Hello, Dave.
Hey mate, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Hopefully, this is coming through for everyone. Slightly different setup to previous times.
We're just moving into 2021, just like you'd expect. Just chest first.
Yeah. It's basically we have I'm trying a new app to get the video into YouTube. People that use a Macintosh will know that it's really really difficult to get a Zoom call into OBS and then into YouTube. This makes sense to a lot of people, Dave. Don't worry.
Yeah,
And we're
everyone.
trying a new little app called OBS Ninja. So hopefully the sound's
Ninjas are sick.
okay. How are you going? Happy New Year.
Likewise, mate. I'm so glad that 2020 is over and everything is sick now.
Everything is sick now is a strange turn of phrase.
It's done. We did it. We got here.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's still a lot of problems in the world that
No.
didn't.
2021, I think you'll find on the calendar, Luke. So
Okay,
fine.
global warming, widening poverty and wealth gaps. Fine.
No problems. We did it.
Hi to everyone out in their chat. Hopefully, it's all the people that joined us from last night, where we didn't quite get going. Yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment. We had a big audience and nothing to show for it. Your internet went out.
Yeah, I've just decided that they were not interested in keeping us folk in the north serviced. So yeah, I only got mine back this morning actually. So yeah, annoying.
A whole evening without internet. We tried hotspotting and it was no good.
No, it was not good at all. I sounded like two aliens, if I'm not much mistaken.
Yeah, correct. Now, this is technically the second podcast for the year. First one that Dave, you've been part of. You weren't part of the previous one with Ian Watson, but you had a.
I know. I wish I was. It was a good one.
Yeah, you had a sneaky listen. Any key takeaways?
That guy loves beer. He loves beer, and he loves music too. But like, you could just like, his enthusiasm was undeniable, and it made me really just wish that I was here for this one. Yeah, and like he also like it was a lot was centered around our golden age of being on top of what was happening in the beer community. So like felt like it was right in my wheelhouse, but it was just good to hear those kinds of stories though.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's one of those interviews where sometimes I don't do any research before an interview, and partly that's, I mean, look, partly laziness, but partly also because quite often if we go on an interview with a brewer, we know everything about them, and you can forget that the audience doesn't know anything about them. Larry King.
What did you know about Ian prior?
Sorry?
What did you know about Ian prior to the interview?
I knew that he was a brewer and had brewed in a number of places, and it
Yep.
was held in great respect by a lot of people around the industry, which is, enough to want to have a chat to someone. But yeah, Larry King famously used to not do any preparation before interviews under the ethos of.
I mean, it also created some of the greatest sound bites of all time.
Yeah, and hopefully I did too. Rest in peace, Larry King, and that was a tribute to him and not laziness.
Spin it however you want.
No, really good chat, and a little bit of a preview for next week's chat. We'll be joined by Sean Sherlock. So we talked about him with Ian. Oh, I talked about him with Ian about the era at Murray's. Now Sean's at Foghorn. So we've been talking to Sean off and on over the years about we should find time to podcast, and he's always in town for very brief, busy times.
Yeah,
we're never in Newcastle. I don't think I've ever been to Newcastle in my life. I would love to go, but so now that we're doing virtual interviews, it's a good opportunity to get Sean on the show.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Again, like he was like one of the kings of the industry at that time that we were like fully into it. So I mean, not that we're not fully into it now, but when we were just across 100% of everything that was happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's one of those guys that like, I don't know, just a little bit of an idol, I guess.
Yeah. definitely. Now
You mentioned in the vibe of the beers that they were going for at Murray's was like big, essentially, like big flavor profiles, whether it was the malt backbone, the hops, or the yeast profile, and like that just really like that played right into the beer geeks of the time because that's what we wanted. We just wanted the biggest, boldest, oddest beers that like look back now and they're probably kind of, you'd hate to use the word pedestrian, but pedestrian in the today's sense of the word, but like that was it then, man. That was it.
A little bit, yeah, old-fashioned maybe now, seeing that kind of hyper-aggressive everything, whereas now if
Yeah.
someone does that, it's kind of a one-off as a nod to that time, which is only 5-6 years ago now. I think it was...
That's monster time though, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2016, end of 2016, when I wrote about the first kind of milkshake beers that were coming out, or hazy beers, sorry. And there was, I think, 4 or 5 in Australia, and that was November 2016.
That
So
seems that seems like it's longer ago than I would have thought anyway, actually. So
yeah, and that was super early on. There was
there's 5 or 6 in every tap room.
Yeah, there are tap rooms that have 10. I mean, the Range tap room probably has, probably 10 on tap.
Yeah, I go to Carwin Cellars and try to find a clean West Coast IPA, and at the moment, actually, a few people are doing them as one-offs. But gee, it's like trying to find a dry needle in a hazy haystack doing that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, there have been some good ones. I was actually going to talk about one, but I might leave that a little bit later.
Yeah, maybe I've got written down to talk about, so that'd be ideal.
Oh, sorry, say that again.
It might be the same one that I've got noted down. So
excellent.
We'll see. Ooh.
Now, I did want to talk about, we've got Craig Williams in the chat. I don't want to dwell on it too much. Craig's former director of Gabs. Good to see you still want to get involved in the beer scene after spending time directing Gabs. I'd be burned on beer after that. But yeah, I'm actually doing a live stream with Bent Spoke on Thursday night. So tune into the Bent Spoke Facebook page. I don't have a link, but if you go over, I think it's Bent Brewers Live or something like that, with Richard Watkins and Steve Jeffers, the founder of Gabs, to kind of unpack all those things. And huge congratulations to Richard Watkins for...
Massive. How good is it?
Yeah, it's really cool seeing, for all the cynics out there, and I kind of touched on this in my story that I wrote, it's, this isn't a multinational brewery with, brewing a 5% hazy pale or like a XPA. It's an aggressive IPA that's from someone that's been in the industry and done it, for years when no one cared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we were all like draft, like, I don't know if many people would have had Crankshaft moving up on their podium. So just to see that it sort of like bucked against that trend that people sort of forecasted. Great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than that, I really enjoy Gabs as the list. It's fun to watch things come in, fun to see how people voted. It, for all the criticism that it's a popularity contest and it is.
It is a popularity contest.
Yeah,
the idea.
Yeah. And I know that it means a lot for breweries to win and do well, and it can be the centerpiece of marketing for a lot of breweries. As a customer, and as I guess even someone that's highly engaged in the industry, I like to see the list and see what does well. Then moving on.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, it's interesting in the couple of weeks or maybe a month or so leading up to Gabs, how much of that direct marketing you get from who as to how they're trying to push their beers, whether they want you to angle a particular one, or just fish for something, or go really hard at a specific order or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
I tuned into Triple M radio for the first time, I think, in my life. Oh,
Yeah, you must be growing a couple of hairs in your chest.
what brutal stuff, isn't it? It's not good at all. That
Music.
Sorry?
Was it like talkback or music?
I don't. It was some sort of afternoon show. It was mostly music, I think.
Right. Okay.
But I wanted to hear the ad they were playing for Gabs, the Mick Malloy one.
Yeah.
Have a beer with
Malloy
Mick.
ad. What was the? Yeah, I think you sent me a screenshot of that, but I don't really know what the gist of the ad was. What was the angle?
Basically, so Mick Malloy is one of many investors in Brick Lane, and he pictures it, and there's a lot of sound bites of him saying, "Vote for my brewery. This is my brewery. You know, Mick's got a brewery," which is kind of true, but also not really true.
Yeah.
And then have a beer with mick.com.au, I think was the website, and you go there and it's got a vote for these beers in this order thing. You know, I get the marketing. I get why you do it. I don't know if I love that aspect of it. I think that's a bit, but everyone else is doing it now, so
that's exactly right. And I mean, I guess like for people like us, it kind of moves past us a little bit, because like, yeah, I mean, that I'm sure that sort of stuff is helpful for the greater audience, but like, I don't want to be bombarded with suggestions of how to use my picks or whatever. But, I don't know, whatever. I'm sure it's probably overall a net positive.
It's funny. People always say, as a criticism, none of my picks, none of the beers I voted for got in the top 10 even. It's like, I think every year I don't think I've had any in there. I vote for the dumbest beers, or not the dumbest, but like, I think back of the 5 that I've gone, oh yeah, that was a really good moment with that beer.
I reckon 1 year, what's the Mountain Goat Summer Ale history been like?
I think it was 30-ish for a while.
And it didn't crack top 10?
No, I don't think so.
Well, in that case, I probably wouldn't have had anything in my in the top 10 either.
I mean, speaking of Brick Lane, I voted for Brick Lane Draft. Genuinely love that beer. I think that is an
interesting beer. Yeah, like we were fortunate enough to get. I think we might have talked about it on the show and privately, but like, luckily enough, we got given. What did we get? A case of that?
Yeah,
given to us, which is very generous. But it gives you the chance to, like, I enjoyed the first one I had, but I loved the 7th one and the 8th one. It's like it's a little bit interesting. It takes a few to like get it's a pretty complex lager for a down the line lager. So yeah, it takes a couple of goes to fully appreciate it, I reckon.
I reckon every time I had it, I paused and I had a moment and went, damn, that's good. Like there's a really nice, interesting bitterness right at the front that just kind of, it's enough to snap you out of, I'm drinking their kind of, attempt to sell slab beer.
The other characteristic of that beer that does that is the aroma. It's quite floral. It's quite floral yeasty, and that kind of like really each time you like go near it, if you're not expecting it, you're like, oh, that's right. This is kind of interesting.
Hey, speaking of interesting beers,
he thinks that the campaigning actually influences votes, or it just reminds people of beer they liked. Now, I reckon it does. It does the latter, resulting in the former. Does that make any sense?
Stretch that out a bit.
Oh, I think that it reminds people of beers that they liked, and then that is a trigger to go, oh yeah, that is good. Actually, I'm gonna jump on it because there's inevitably a link for the voting page. Yeah, I did like that. I'm probably more impetus to submit a vote, I reckon.
One of the interesting things, and I haven't had the time to actually look at it, is someone pointed out a lot of breweries are kind of grouped together in their beers. I think Capital Brewing, their beers kind of all landed in a bit of a similar place. And someone suggested looking at what they campaigned for in what order and seeing if that's mirrored in the list. I don't know. I mean, there's a couple of things at play. People say, it's just whatever's popular in Dan Murphy's, but there are so many beers in Dan Murphy's that don't make the list.
Definitely. And also, if you want to talk about Dan Murphy's, whoever is responsible, like Crankshaft is always, or their bent spoke beers in general are always among the freshest ones on the shelf. So if you can get through enough beer and maintain your supply lines like that, then, I mean, if you can get your beer in someone's hand and it's in good condition, then they're probably going to pick it up again.
The other thing is, if you can motivate your audience to get out and vote for you, then you're doing something right.
Definitely.
A lot of these breweries aren't doing, they're doing campaigns to their audience. People aren't seeing a bent spoke Instagram, which they were all over my Instagram. I didn't vote for them. As much as I love that beer, it's not what I voted for this year. But if I didn't know what bent spoke was and that came from Instagram, I'm not going to go and then vote for it.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going for with the psychology of it. It's an interesting sort of study.
Couple of points here. Judd says it's hard to imagine what the average, only kind of engaged beer drinker sees. I don't know what he means by that. Judd, what do you mean by that? What they see as in with the poll or with the...
Or what they interpret the marketing to say to them. Reveal, Judd. What do you mean?
Now, anecdotally as well, so Your Mate's brewery is always a bit of a surprise for people when they score really well for the last 2 years. But a couple of my colleagues were up on the Sunshine Coast this week, and they said Your Mate's was packed. It was just the busiest brewery there in the Sunshine Coast. I think they went to 10 breweries, and they had a great time and they loved all the beers. So, for us, looking from Melbourne, we go, I know those are the guys from Shark Tank, maybe, but
didn't even know that. There you go.
Yeah, they're on Shark Tank. But for the people that aren't us, the Melbourne bubble, where we live in Thornbury and Footscray, like we're very sheltered in what we think the beer everyone loves is. So it's kind of cool that there are these audiences that aren't, the Good Beer Week audience, the audience that we've grown up with over the last decade, that are really influential.
Exactly.
So Judd's asking in terms of what advertising and marketing. So the average punter, I guess, seeing the bent spoke marketing. But I'm assuming the average punter sees the Mick Malloy. That's right. One of my coworkers said that it wasn't just Mick Malloy talking about it. It was some rugby player from New Zealand, which was quite offensive to me because that rugby player is Dan Carter, All Black legend. You should put some respect on his name. He's not just some rugby player. It's a national hero.
Where was your friend from?
Sorry?
Where was your friend from?
Oh, it was one of my coworkers said that.
Yeah, from Melbourne?
Yeah. They don't know Dan Carter. Yeah. I want to move on from Gabs because I'm going to be talking about it a bunch on Thursday night, and I don't want to blow up Richard's show as well. Just a couple of comments. Sam Smalley says Mountain Culture will be in it next year and hopefully go all right. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know if they do the volume just yet, or if they do, even within their beers, people have different opinions. I'm sure the beer that the ones that we'd vote for, Dave, would be a lot different to, what other people would vote for with Mountain Culture.
Martin's going to be number 3 next year, I think.
The Martin?
Yeah.
We'll see how you go. And Dave Cloughton says 5 Queensland beers, 6 if you include Pacific Ale in the top 10. Do we think more Queensland people voted, or were those beers more national enough to get interstate votes? I think it's probably a mixture. I think Ballistic are pretty national. Black Hops are pretty national. I think
they're a pretty engaged demographic too. So people that they love the Queensland brands, and they'll probably do what they can to help them out. So yeah,
I agree. People are passionate about those brands in particular, and
Yeah.
like I can't see negatives in that. That's absolute positives for me. When people, and especially people, turn down their nose at craft beer being an inner city Melbourne hipster drink, is still a cliche you see bandied round, and it's kind of proving that it's not.
Definitely. It's definitely the case. Yeah, I mean, wandering around to see a packed Your Mates brewery is probably not a bad example of that. Same thing with like, I mean, it's maybe a bit different because there's not that much else around, but like, who is it up in Cairns? Why am I blanking?
Hemingway's?
Hemingway's, yeah. That's like the spot. That's the spot in Port Douglas. I don't know
Yeah.
what the Cairns look like. I assume that goes all right too. But like the Port Douglas one is so good.
Yeah, I love Hemingway's, and their beers are great. They popped up in the top 100, I think, once.
Yeah, a couple of years ago maybe.
And as breweries go, they deserve it because they make really good beer, and it's a great spot to drink a beer. The food there wasn't so flash when I visited, but you're on a tourist.
I think it was, yeah, it was good, but like it's a I don't know. It's like I think anywhere in Port Douglas you don't really get a bang for your buck there, but
It's expensive, yeah.
yeah. But
sorry.
go ahead. Yeah, I thought it was quite good though.
Someone has made a comment that's just a super in joke that is not worth repeating, but I see you out there with that in joke. I just want to shout out the beer that I'm drinking, Dave. You're drinking SodaStream?
Correct.
Nice and fizzy.
Level, if you don't mind, yeah.
Nice. I've got a Hargraves Hill triple.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's very easy drinking for 8.6%. Shout out to Hargraves Hill for dropping those ones around. Their West Coast IPA was glorious too. Speaking of, I voted for them as well in the Hottest 100.
For that one?
No, the Fruitopia, the mango lassi cinnamon.
Oh,
one.
yeah, of course. You really enjoyed that, didn't you?
Yeah, such a good beer. Judd says that Hemingway's in Cairns is rammed all the time. I'm always really wary of saying cans because being a New Zealander, I call it Cairns, and people get.
I don't think anyone's going to really have an issue with
No, it's happened before.
Quite similar.
It's happened before. Cans.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to cross Gab's Bants off our list, Dave. We're done. Tune in on Thursday night to the Bent Spoke Live on Facebook for more.
What time?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Okay. I thought you might have had it sorted. Never mind.
Yeah, no. It'll be in my diary somewhere. I think it's 6 o'clock, but yeah, Bent Spoke on Facebook. You can find that. I'm going to shift gears heaps, Dave. Have you heard about this coup in Myanmar?
Yeah, Aung San Suu Kyi taken.
Yeah, bit of a genocide went down in Myanmar over the last few years as well, and this hasn't really been talked about. And I'm not going to comment too much about it, but Kirin, the owner of Lion, has been criticised quite roundly by international aid organisations and international watchdogs for their involvement in this. So they have a strong partnership with the Myanmar military in the two of the breweries there.
Right.
So people are like, they're basically directly supporting a pretty awful genocide. And while Lion isn't, the people that work in Lion, the people that brew in Lion here aren't anyway involved in that. It just kind of goes to show when multinationalism and genocides meet. It makes for some uncomfortable conversations.
Definitely. And I mean, it puts a lot of people that would otherwise have no idea about that in some pretty uncomfortable positions.
Amnesty International were going hard on Instagram ads about it recently, where it was like a quiz, a fake quiz. It was like, how well do you know your beer? And you click in and it's all about, do you know that Lion has direct links to the genocide in Myanmar. Kind of questions. It was, pretty interesting.
Do you know what level of involvement they have with the military? Just like security contracts and that sort of stuff?
So Karen and the military, through a different company, which is basically run by the military, it's not quite a 50-50 partnership, but it is a 50-50. I think it's Karen have 51% of the international brewery there, and the other partner or major partner is the military funded body. So it's pretty direct.
Yeah, right.
Less than ideal, and no one's really talked about it in Australian media. And I think, I'm certainly not equipped to give too much in-depth statements on it, or I just sort of tweeted the facts about it the other day and got zero response from anyone here. So, interesting.
Big. You should do it on Hypothetical Institute, and that way you'll get the ball really rolling on that one.
Not really a
Hell of a
conspiracy.
time to move the needle, but Hypothetical Institute.
It's certainly in the wheelhouse. It's not really a conspiracy when it's just kind of, this is what's happening.
I just mean use that platform, dude. You're wasting it here.
That is true. Now, you mentioned, Dave, that you wanted to talk about West Coast IPA. I just want to talk. I've got like a list of beers that I want to talk about. What was the West Coast?
You know what? You know, like the only way that I document beers these days is I just text you just what the name of the beer is, essentially, and that's the only really way that I know what's going on. But that range West Coast IPA that I had recently was so good. It was like a real West Coast IPA. I mean, like exactly what I was looking for. I keep finding a few these days, and I had a Hawker's one that was pretty good, but I think they might have called it like a double West Coast IPA or whatever. So it was very big, and in that realm, it was pretty good, but like it didn't have that like bitterness and dryness that the range one had, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
I had the Mr. Banks DDH West Coast the other day. Really enjoyed it. Really fun.
It's called that?
Oh, Green Light, or it's in a big green can. It's hard to keep track of his names these days.
Exactly.
It's the current one out. It was on tap, and I wasn't going to have another beer, and the tap list changed as I was looking on my phone. You know how you order on your phone everywhere these days, and that came up, and I was like, "Ooh, let's get one of these."
Must.
Really, really enjoyable. But speaking of those two, I had the Range Mr. Banks Lager collab. This was a little bit ago. Didn't really do anything for me.
Didn't work?
Nah, unfortunately. I saw people really liked it online, but I didn't find any.
Vibe.
Yeah.
Do you know what the vibe was?
It was just like a hoppy lager.
Yeah, okay.
It didn't have that delicious crispness and what I'd expect. It was brewed at Range and not Mr. Banks, and I really like Mr. Banks's lagers, so I wonder if they switched it around, it might be a better one.
Hey Sam, I can't remember which range one it was, so give me a couple of names and I'll tell you which one it was. But if we're going to touch on the lagers briefly, that Deeds Czech Pilsner, that one really made me pleased. Yeah, did you try that one?
I haven't tried it. No, I haven't had a Deeds beer for a while actually.
Get it, definitely. Nazdravi Lager, I think I've called it. It is, it's proper.
Excellent. You want to hear about the best West Coast IPA I've had in a long time?
Obviously.
It's one that we've talked about before, I'm sure. Stomping Ground Hop Stomper.
Just evergreen.
Had it on tap at Stomping Ground 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just blew me away with how good that was.
Yeah, it's amazing fresh, but another testament to the work they're doing there is you can get a slightly older can somewhere and it still tastes really, really good. So yeah, that's a perennial, I think. Judd agrees. He loved that Pilsner.
Excellent. Judd has good taste. A couple of other beers that I want to mention, Dave, is have you heard of they did really well in the Indies, Loophole Brewing?
No, talk to me.
So I've had a few tins of them now, and every time I've had one, I've had a few of the variations. I'm blown away. So they've got a series that are, I think they're co-fermented on wine skins, different with different wine grapes. So it's in South Australia. It's part of Cape Jaffa Winery. So obviously they have access to grapes. The Malbec one, I think, won a trophy in the Indies last year. But I can't remember how many there are, but all of them have just been just incredible. Like,
yeah, right.
For something, a brewery that no one's really talking about. I've had I think they've had a couple of pieces in the Crafty Pint, but yeah.
Yep. Are they to Melbourne?
I don't know what the distribution is like. I got them through sort of Indies stock that was part of the event, but
because that is seems relevant to my interest. So I'd be interested if they were coming in.
They're certainly right up there with the best of that. We speak of your dollar bills, your Three Ravens, Wildflower, Lasso Ren. They're certainly immediately for me well in the high tier of that field.
That's big.
Yeah. So yeah, check them out. Maybe we'll try and get an episode with them. I don't know much about them at all, but really curious to know more. And speaking of the Three Ravens Negroni, did you try that yet, Dave?
Yeah, I did. It's pretty interesting.
Wasn't for you?
Was it interesting?
No, no. I said, was it for you? Like you didn't. You seemed to hesitate there.
I don't know. It's kind of. I really enjoyed it. We shared it with some friends that didn't really dig. They didn't really know what to expect from that kind of beer with that kind of name. But I found it really interesting, and I quite liked it.
There wasn't an odd spice to it, I thought, at the start.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, it's a Negroni-inspired beer brewed with the leftover grapes from the Bloody Shiraz gin from Four Pillars, which is a delicious gin, very, very big cult following. Yeah. Have you tried? So we've got, I guess we can announce it. Our next patron beer will be a beer with Three Ravens that's currently conditioning now. We've got a couple of, I had a bottle that I dropped on the ground by mistake and it broke everywhere, and that was very annoying. Have you tried yours yet, Dave?
No. Well, instructions were it was a month away. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's going.
So no, I haven't tried one yet, but
so that'll be our next beer. Yeah, it'll be our next beer for patrons. It's a we'll probably have to have a chat with Brendan, but it's dry hop pills that they moved from tank to barrel to pick up some natural funk, and then conditioned in clear bottles to really lean into the off flavors. The kind of beer that makes sense if you're Brendan or the whole crew at Three Ravens, I guess. And it makes sense for our patrons. So I think we're going to, there might be some bottles available for sale after the fact, but initial release will just go to patrons, and all patrons, including $1 tiers, will get a chance to get a bottle, which is really cool. And some custom artwork, which is looking really schmick.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I, from all reports, Brendan was pretty thrilled with how it was developing anyway. So I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah, really excited about that one. And I guess speaking of where...
I walk past the broken glass every day and I go, God damn it, Luke.
Oh, I feel so bad about that. And I haven't meant to mention that to you. So we were getting an Uber on a busy road and it pulled over, and just we stepped in, the bottle fell out of the box, like the bottom of the box, and smashed. And I was like, and I had a few drinks and have felt bad ever since for leaving glass on the road or on the footpath.
that I saw it, I was walking to the gym and I was like, "What's happened here? I wonder what's." Oh yeah, Luke dropped his dumb bottle. Yeah.
Apologies to the good people of Thornbury for littering. I genuinely have felt so much shame about that, and thanks for outing me in public.
It was kind of shardy though, so it wouldn't have been a simple operation, I don't think.
To clean up.
Yeah, it would have been a hazard, I think.
Oh, and like literally as we were stepping into the Uber and the traffic was whizzing by, and we were, so that evening we'd been to Three Ravens, Moondog, and then Jamshed, and it's that snap drunk decision that I really wish there was an alternative that I made.
I don't think you could have done too much. Maybe you could have like alerted the start. I don't know. We haven't got a time machine, so
yeah. Anyway, thanks for outing me as a broken glass litterer on a podcast. Got to edit this out of the podcast.
You got to be kept accountable, dude.
I don't really have too much more. We're going to be. Oh, actually, I do have one more thing. Sorry, there's a non-alcoholic beer event happening here in Footscray.
Cool.
I think it's the first outside of the virtual non-alcoholic beer festival and then one-off, tastings. It's the first actual event I've seen.
I wouldn't have thought. I don't think I've ever heard of one, so that's kind of cool.
It's at the Victoria Hotel in Footscray on the 13th of Feb. I think they're doing naught, sober, and heaps normal beers.
Yep.
And they're following it up with a non-alcoholic wine and spirit. So progressive happening in a pub. And so supportive of not drinking happening in a pub. So yeah, support that if you're in Melbourne and if you're doing Feb fast or you want to cut back. I think that's a pretty cool event.
Just interested in what's going on, like have access to some different non-alcoholic like offerings without having to really like commit too much, especially if you have a wine or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to do it. Like when you're getting into craft beer and going, if I go to an event, I can try a whole bunch. That's a pretty cool way to do it. Last time I was there, I noticed that. Sorry?
A beer event you can drive to. Joel's now hit the nail on the head.
There you go. Last time I was there, I noted they had maybe 5 or 6 non-alcoholic beers on the menu already. So yeah, really cool. Really good stuff. The other thing is we're slightly tweaking the Patreon. We're going to be simplifying things and making somewhat of a change, just because it's quite unwieldy for me to manage, and I feel like we're not giving all the things that we could be to the patrons. So outside of the beer that we're currently releasing and the previous one we're doing, we're going to start looking at making things all streamlined for the supporters to get a little bit of extra. Speaking of Gabs, the supporters would have, a few of them got on board with the Gabs sweep that we did. You missed out on that, Dave. You didn't get your picks in time.
No, I was away with no reception. I mean, I could have done it a long time before that, but it got the best of me, so missed out.
That's cool. We're going to look at doing more things like that. Fun, community-based things. It doesn't always have to be a beer, and the beers that we do have coming up are great, but let's have a bit more fun. And this is probably the last call for patrons that didn't get their dollar bill beers yet. Please email me, luke@aleofatime.com, because I've got 2 boxes worth left over and they can't live here forever. They'll get drunk. And if other patrons want to jump on board or get another bottle, just let me know and we'll see if we can do that for you guys, because they shouldn't live in my house forever. How's that?
Sure, yeah.
As much as I want to drink them because they're delicious. Have you had yours yet?
Yeah, I did actually. It was really good. Yeah, as much as it developed, it really put me back at the brewery, and it's got all the elements of what we tasted when we were blending it, and then just a little tweak here and there of complexity. It's great.
any beer that takes you back to tasting barrels in a barrel room has got to be.
Definitely.
I think that's it. What time are we at? We're
All right.
just a tick under over 40 minutes. Shout out to Bigsy. Those dollar bill beers are awesome. Bigsy got, what did you get? 5 of them, I think. Hopefully he's got a couple left. We'll be back next Monday with Sean Sherlock from Foghorn Brewing. It's exciting. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Going to be a ripper. Yep, for sure.
8:30 p.m. If you are listening to this on the podcast, you can join us there on the YouTube. If you look up, it's on my social media, but go to Beer Together on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff.
Let's be honest too. It's probably going to be 8:34 p.m. or something like that.
You gotta. I mean, when have you ever seen like, oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing this band, and you turn up and they start right on the dot?
Good point.
The only
We sort of are. Yeah, you're right.
The only artist I've ever seen do that is Jay Retard. Rest in peace. He started on time, no banter, just banged out his songs, down tools, walked through the crowd, don't see him again.
Perfect.
In hindsight, he was probably going to score drugs because he died of a drug overdose soon after. But good show. Dark way to finish.
Yeah.
Dave, if people want to get in touch with you, what do they do?
Send me an email, I reckon. David@aoaT.com. That's fun. I like getting those little Gmail alerts. That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. Who doesn't? It's like getting a letter when you actually get a proper email these days.
All right, I think that's it.
You get me, Luke at aoaT.com, Hypothetical Institute in your podcast apps for conspiracy stuff.
You must be going nuts at the moment.
We joke about this. It's so hard to do because
so much out there that you can't possibly capture it all.
We're just competing with the New York Times and CNN for conspiracy news now.
True, yeah.
There's no fun anymore when, it's just reality. So we've done a couple of throwback classic ones. We did Shakespeare is not a real person last week. So if you want to learn about why Shakespeare...
What's the most compelling argument for that?
I think that people thought he was... Sorry?
Just the most compelling tidbit.
That Francis Bacon was actually Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was just a front this whole time. And then we're doing a UFO one this week, so dipping into some classics to avoid the crossover with CNN.
Perfect. Oh, I don't know. There could be some UFO gear on CNN. You never know.
Who knows in 2021? Dave, really good to chat to you. Thanks for everyone for joining us in the chat. It's great seeing all the people that joined us during the lockdown for the first kind of phase of this, joining us in the chat. It's been really fun. And hopefully we see you all next week. Cheers, everyone.
See you Monday.